Joining me here in the studio to continue our conversation about Escape from Sobibor is Richard Raske, the author of Escape from Sobibor, and joining the conversation is Esther Raab, a survivor of Sobibor, and who is portrayed in the movie. Welcome to both of you. The most important question is, how old were you when this happened?
When I came to Sobibor, I was 19.
Where did you come from and who was with you and your family?
Nobody from my family came with me because my father, they killed the first day, the first unit of SS came into our city. So they rounded up all the rich people, not so rich, some educated people, 600 in all, and they started chasing him towards Hrubieszów, another city. My brother was with my father. My father was, and they shot them all. My brother pretended to be dead, and he came back, but my father not.
What was your experience in researching this? Did people who you talked to have a commonality of memory, or was it quite different from person to person?
Well, reconstructing what happened at Sobibor, because there are no records, would be like reconstructing a train accident. Everyone experiences something that's common, but everyone is standing at or is hurt in a different place. So their perspective is limited. So you take what's common, and then you take all the individual pieces and check them out and try to flesh out the whole story. The common experience was the absolute sense of joy at having beat the Nazis, at having survived, having succeeded in the most difficult circumstances, and having revenge against the Nazis today by reproducing and having families.
But you say there were no records, and what astonished people after World War II was the fastidiousness with which the Nazis kept records. Were there no Nazi records?
There were none. One little telegram that said, yesterday the Jews at Sobibor revolted, 11 or 12 SS officers were killed, 1 Ukrainian guard was killed, 300 escaped, and the rest were dispatched the next morning. That's all that survived from this whole incident.
Mrs. Raab, you're struck immediately by people saying to one another, tell them you have a trade. Did that happen?
Yes, yes. We didn't know why, because when I came with a group of 800 young girls and boys and 2 fathers from girls. And as I didn't come by train, I came by horse and wagon. They recruited the farmers to take us because it was so close to Sobibor. And as we assembled on the platform where the trains used to come in, I saw one of the SS Schafführers, Wagner, walking with my girlfriend and pointing. And I said, Mira, who you looking for? Everything took a split second. She said, I'm looking for girls who know how to knit. And I said, what's about my tower? And she told him he should take me out.
And that's what you did each day?
No. The other days, the Bahnhofskommando, those were the people who unloaded the people, they felt if they tell them you have a trade, they always looked for people with trades, they had the chance maybe to get into the camp instead of straight to the gas chamber.
I was fascinated in watching with the role of the Ukrainians because I was brought up to believe there was as much anti-Semitism among the Ukrainians as there were among the Nazis, the Germans. Was that true?
I would say the same thing or maybe even more. Otherwise, they wouldn't take him to collaborate with them, to work with them.
That's the key word, collaborate. They volunteered, did they not, the Ukrainian guards?
Yes,
Yes, they volunteered, they were specially trained, and they had a very, very good life in Sobibor. Vodka, kielbasa, days off, women, name it, they had it.
Well, how did they manifest? Who were worse to you, the Germans or the Ukrainians, or were they both terrible?
They both were the same. Whatever the Nazis didn't do, they finished off.
In the movie, there's this terrible, appalling shot when the prisoners look up and see the smoke. When did you know this was a death camp?
There were rumors when I was in the camp before, which was only a working camp, not a death camp. There were rumors, but nobody in his right mind believed they're taking people and they're killing for what? Why? Why? Children, women, older people, why? But we knew, as I marched from one camp to the other, I was in 2 camps before, working camps, as they assembled us for Sobibor, we knew that this is a death camp. But nobody could visualize, how do you take healthy people who didn't do nothing and kill them?
It fascinated me because I remember the big furor over Hannah Arendt's book that the prisoners did not offer resistance. How did this resistance come about in this particular camp?
Well, the important thing is that the Nazis' need for efficiency created a whole pool of tough birds. The Nazis, if you have a good tailor, or you have a really good shoemaker, or a good electrician, you don't want to kill them. You need them to keep the camp running. So it was in the Nazis' interest to keep these people, keep the same people, and keep them relatively healthy. In doing that, they created a whole pool of people who were physically strong, emotionally very strong, and filled with this great sense of hatred, thirst for life, and revenge. And without these elements, there could never have been an escape.
When did you first hear about the plans for the escape?
When they started, Leon Feldhandler, who was the leader of the escape, he was a cousin. He was my cousin. He came later to the camp. When he came in, usually they took him out from a transport, and we told him what's going on here. And you see the fire, and you see the people every day, and they just disappear. He said right away, we have to escape. We have to escape, and we asked how, where, when. He said, we'll find a way.
What was the reaction when the Russian prisoners arrived? Did that make the plan seem more feasible when the Russians came in?
The plan was ready, but they gave us the courage that we needed as military men, because none of us knew how to shoot a rifle, how to use a gun. But when they came in and they heard the plan that we had, they said, it can be done, and we're going to do it. And they encouraged us a lot.
Who were these Russians? What part of Russia had they come from? It's not clear in the movie.
It's not clear. They came from all parts of Russia, but again, to go back to what I said before, they were tough birds too. They had escaped from every single camp that the Germans put them in, and they were caught again, and escaped again, and caught again. And they came from Minsk, and they arrived in Sobibor by accident. You see, the Russians were pushing the Germans west, and Minsk was in the road, and so they cleaned out the labor camp at Minsk to destroy all the evidence of their atrocities. And they were going to send all of the Jew workers from Minsk to Treblinka. But Treblinka had a problem, so that they diverted the train with the Russian POWs to Sobibor, and that's how they ended up there.
If the Russians had not come, would the escape succeeded?
Same way.
It would have.
Yeah. That's how I feel. People learned. people knew how to do it. We were so determined to escape, no matter at what price. If not even one survived, we have to do it.
Why this camp of all the camps? That's what fascinates me.
Yeah.
Why this camp decided we should be free?
I think that we have more possibilities than other camps. First of all, other camps were half slave labor camps and half death camps. So, you know, the people were shaven and not, they didn't have enough to eat, and they worked hard, and they really made, wore them out terrible. Here, the conditions, because we lived in such close quarters with the Nazis, and they were afraid of diseases and of sicknesses, and also for propaganda reasons. They didn't shave our hair. We looked human. We could take clothes from the dead people and wear. We had to keep ourselves clean, and that gave us the courage.
Why did they do that? Were they worried about Red Cross inspections?
There were Red Cross inspections. There were also out of propaganda, because there were days, the Sobibor had so many, the business was so good that they had days where they came 2 transports and 3, and they couldn't kill them as fast as they brought them. So they used to put them behind our fences and told us to walk back and forth, and this was the propaganda that those people are not going to be killed. They're going to work here like we, and we look like human beings.
Had anybody in the camp ever heard that terrible phrase, the final solution?
Yeah, we knew about it.
You did?
Yeah.
How'd you know?
You heard sometimes if a Ukrainian got drunk or a Nazi got drunk, they used to slip sometimes the word. We knew exactly what's going to happen.
Coming up next, we'll find out which scene in Escape from Sobibor is most historically accurate and why. That's next. Welcome back to Movies in Time. We're talking about Escape from Sobibor with Richard Raske, author of Escape from Sobibor, and Esther Raab, a survivor of Sobibor. I want to get back to this whole idea of records. You get the impression 250,000 Jews were killed there. Is that accurate, or were more killed there?
1 million.
How do we know that?
Well, we know that it's not 250,000, which is a number that the Polish War Crimes Commission came up with. That was based on the observation of some Polish partisans who were watching trains come and go. By and large, the Polish partisans were very anti-Semitic, and so the number was guesswork, and it was not inflated. We know that it was 1 million because the Nazis celebrated the day the 1,000,000th Jew was killed inside Sobibor.
How did they do that?
They just got drunk, and we didn't work that day. And they celebrated.
Did you know why they were celebrating? Did they come and tell you?
They always slipped a word here and there. And there were some that liked to talk to us. So when they came in the yard, and we lived very close quarters, he said, "Today is 1,000,000.
And you knew what that meant?
Yeah.
1,000,000 people?
Yeah.
When you heard that, when your fellow prisoners heard it, what did you do?
Nothing. What could we do?
No, but were you more determined then that you had to get out?
We had to get out for one reason, because we felt that all this will be forgotten and the world won't even know what happened, and the Nazis, the Germans will get away with it. And we felt any price we'll give or whatever we'll do It's worth it to get out. And if one survives, it was important to us.
You wrote the book. Can you comprehend what Mrs. Raab has just said?
It's hard to comprehend, but it's an absolute fact. 1 out of every 6 Jews killed in the Holocaust was murdered in Sobibor, 1 million out of 6 million. And if they hadn't escaped, not a single record would have survived except the word Sobibor and the fact there was a camp there. It would have been lost. The escape from Sobibor is the jewel in the crown of Jewish resistance all during the war. It would have been lost.
Why, until you came along, or people like Mrs. Raab would talk about it, were we conversant with Auschwitz, Dachau, and why not Sobibor?
Because we liberated ourselves. We escaped 9 months before the war was ended. And nobody liberated us, nobody saw us, and nobody knew that we existed. The Nazis erased every trace in Sobibor, where the other camps, the military, the reporters, everybody liberated us.
I want to be very careful in what I'm saying now, but this was in effect a lost tribe of Israel, was it not?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
And you have to remember now, there were 300 Jews escaped into the woods, as we saw in the movie. Oh, this great burst of hope and energy. But only 50 of those 300 survived the war. You remember, they had to survive for 9 months. That's a whole different story, but only 50 out of those 300 made it.
Take us back to that day, and what happened to you?
I was ready, and I figured, let me be near the fence. Original, the plan was that we should be a roll call, and we should walk to the armory and take some weapons and walk out the main gate, because the camp was surrounded by mines fields. And then they told us, in case we won't succeed, everyone on his own. I started very early to get to the first compound, to be close to the fence, to the gate, to the armory, which was there. And as I came and I started the roll call, and people got panicky, and we didn't find 2 SS people, and we were afraid that they ran out of the camp, and maybe for help, or let people know what's going on. So I figured, I don't want to be a hero. I want to go out. So I saw somebody put a stepladder against the fence behind the carpet nest. So I ran there, and I climbed up that stepladder fast. I wasn't the first one. There were people before me already. And as I climbed up and wanted to jump on, I got a shot from the tower from a Ukrainian guard.
Where did you get hit?
Here. You can touch it.
And you kept on going?
And I kept on. I was so much aware, and the will to live and to get out was so great that I started hopping over bodies, not to hit the mine, and I made it.
Did some people not leave?
A lot of, yeah. They became panicky, and they didn't know where to go, and it just wasn't the way we planned.
After you got past the dead bodies and the barbed wire, what happened then?
I ran to the woods.
And then what happened?
And in the woods, I turned around, and I saw the fire still burning, and I said, I made it. And I didn't care if I live or die, but I made it.
And how many days did you wander, in effect, in the wilderness?
From Sobibor, I have to tell that story. The night before the escape, we never cried in Sobibor, But we said goodbye to each other because nobody in his right mind there thought that we'll get out, you know. My mother walked in, and I fell asleep. We cried ourselves to sleep, and I fell asleep, and I saw my mother coming into the camp. And I said, Mom, what you doing here? She said, I came here, and I said, you know we're going to escape tomorrow. She said, no. And she took me by the hand, and she led me out from the camp, through the main gate, and outside was a barn, and she led me into the barn, and she showed me the loft with straw, and she said, here go, and you'll survive. In the morning when I told it to my neighboring girls who slept next to me, they said, you were thinking about your mother. That's why you trapped. And I promised myself, if I should get out, I have to go to that place. I recognized it in my dream and see what's there.
For you, the author, what was the most historically accurate part of the film?
Well, first of all, the movie itself was as accurate as my book. And the reason is that the network that produced the movie had some real docudrama hounds on the script. And they forced the producers and the screenwriter to justify every single detail in the script. Every detail. And in a couple of instances, things were changed because they could not trace it back to the book. So in terms of specific incidents, everything in there comes from the book. In terms of the overall, the most accurate I thought were to get the impact of what Sobibor was about were the opening scenes with the trains coming in, because the whole camp is predicated upon this is what happens here. And I thought that was very accurate, very moving, and very touching. It was prettied up a bit because people didn't bounce off those trains the way they show frequently in the movie. But I felt that that was the heart of one portion of the movie, and it was done well.
For you, the survivor, what was the most accurate part, or is impossible to depict what you went through with any accuracy at all?
It's impossible because certain things they couldn't show in the movie because they were afraid. Like I witnessed when Frenzel, a transport came in, and I was hiding in the SS quarters. I was cleaning there behind the curtain. I wanted to see what's going to happen. And they unloaded the people, and somebody left the baby in a boxcar. And Frenzel took that baby by the little feet and smashed the skull against the boxcar and threw it in like a rat. And this haunts me my whole life. I went to his trial maybe 3 times. I accused him of it. I didn't accuse him, I told him what he did. He didn't deny it 100%, but he followed the orders.
Thank you both very much, and especially you, Mrs. Raab. It's really an honor. Forgive me. Please join us again here on Movies in Time, when we will continue to look at history according to the movies. I'm Sander Van Oker. Thanks for watching. I'm sorry.